got asked to talk about this because I started playing with it at PinguaCon, doing presentations there. And I think I had more fun making the presentations than actually talking about whatever it was I was supposed to be talking about. So
that's cool.
There's a few of these that have been popping up. These are impress.js is basically a JavaScript and HTML presentation framework. There's a few different frameworks for it. Impress.js isn't the only one, but it's probably my favorite so far, but I'm still looking at the other ones a bit. So I made a little cheesy presentation here. This audio presentation I think is pretty cheesy, so let's start. So presentations I think are generally bad. They make us stupid. I have a link here to the New York Times article that one of the generals, I think it was in Afghanistan, talked about how he banned PowerPoint from his briefings because he said you can't. So PowerPoint dumbs down complex scenarios, and not just PowerPoint, but presentations in general. Try to make bullet points out of complex scenarios, so you can't just make a bullet point out of a battlefront because there's too many things happening. And he said he banned it and made us stupid. So I think that's true, but I think that presentations are also what pointy-headed bosses like. They like graphics. They like quick little bullet points so they can kind of catch up to speed on what people are doing. So, what can a geek do? And well, that was not a smooth transition, was it? Now it's
there we go.
So impress.js will give you presentations that suck less.
That's good.
And it does that all open standards, browsers, open source. Blatant plagiarism is about to commence. So the rest of this presentation I blatantly stole from the impress.js demo because they do a really good job of showing all the transitions and flips and kind of effects that you can do. So this is cut and paste from the demo. We were inspired by Prezi. I haven't even seen Prezi, but Prezi is a kind of a popular web-based presentation creation tool. They actually are a pay model. You pay to get a presentation created. They host the presentations for you. You can share them. They've got some nice feature sets. So creators of this like the idea about Prezi. They didn't like that it was closed and a paywall and all of that, so they kind of made their own version. So you've seen so far kind of the rotation effect and sliding effect. The big is a scale effect on a div. I'll get to that in a minute. Now you've seen the Z space panning into the Z space with the rotation for the tiny thing there. Now individual elements with the delay on positioning and rotation and stuff. So it came to the slide and then things that happened afterwards. And now to the thing about imagination. Use the source. This is a link to the source on GitHub. Luke is actually an embedded base64 graphic in the CSS that this person did, but you don't have to do it that way. The mug logo, I did a really well reductions to the URL. So I like that transition. If you've got the offsets, these are all different scales. If we position it when you come together, it all moves it up nicely. So Prezi's not 3D. So that's the presentation basics. So let me get to the source code. So how do you make one of these?
Oh, that's too small.
Too small?
And dim.
You got too dark a background or too light of letters or something.
Okay.
Black on white, man.
The letters are too dark.
All right, let me fire up a new terminal.
Black and white works.
Yeah, that's like a bold. Yep, that's good.
Bigger is better.
Slightly. Yeah, it's
A little better?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you git clone whoops. So here is impress.js. If I git clone this, you end up with a directory that's like this.
We can't see the very bottom line.
Yeah,
So
sorry,
if you
that's
just
because
press
of
enter.
my Zoom.
It's just half off, yeah.
Let me resize the window here. As you know, there's not doing that.
That's all right. That's good. I mean, that's 3/4 of what you're typing, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Number 5.
No?
Yeah,
I
it's
just,
fine.
I just made it worse.
No,
Yeah.
press enter now. I think it'll scroll right. Ah, there you go.
There,
Okay.
perfect.
So this is what you get. You know, he's got a base directory structure you're getting, and if you edit the, I knew that was going to happen because of my scheme in there. I'll just gedit, unfortunately. Okay, so let me make that not full screen.
ASCII graphics.
So you can start with the base template for impress.js, or you can, you're encouraged to kind of make your own, start from scratch. And you don't really need much to get going with it. All you need is a CSS to define your content and your look and stuff you want. You need to include the impress.js actual JavaScript, and you've got to work through some divs and stuff that it's expecting. So if you look here, I'm defining my metadata about what it is. I'm pulling in some fonts, and then I'm pulling in my CSS sheet. And toward the bottom, farther down, to get to the rest of this stuff, I'm calling in my scripts for impress.js, and I'm initializing the script, and that's all that's going on to get running. Now, there's a lot of magic that it's happening. So the first thing you're doing is making a body class called impress not supported, and this is handling browsers that do not work well with impress.js. So that would mainly be Internet Explorer, but also mobile browsers. All the mobile stuff is really not here yet. iPads, I guess, will work if you kind of get rid of this body class, or if you detect them, you can kind of say force that content. But for now, everyone that comes back as a not supported class is getting the fallback message, which is your browser doesn't support this, and they get a simplified, dumbed down, just text-only kind of view of your presentation. So they still can see it, but they can't get the nice transitions and effects and stuff. Which is this div here. So div ID impress, all of the presentation is one div. You're building that, you're putting your content in here, and then you're stepping through inside that div additional divs for each slide. So here's this first slide, div ID board. The class type is step slide, which is how I'll show you the CSS in a minute. And then you're defining X and Y coordinates on where you want that slide positioned on the canvas. Then you make your next slide, and all you do is you change your X and Y. So I just made X 0, and I have to slide over. You just picture your 3D template. Data X, next slide, X is another 1,000 over, so 1, 2, 3. Content you want in there. And then this class is different. So that was a step slide class. This is just a step. So in the first 3 slides I had, you'll note that they had a nice window. They looked like normal slides you would expect to see in a presentation. That's because the CSS was defining if it's a slide type, then I want that. If it's just a step, then it's going to be the default CSS body type, which is going to be unthemed, no background like that. And I'm doing a scale here, so I'm growing the font, I'm growing the image bigger. So now you can do that for your classes as well. So the span class try, I'm using spans to do the CSS changes for my formatting, but I'm also using the classes to define effects and transitions. So like the scales and the rotates and stuff that happen afterwards, they weren't new divs, they were part of a span, and I'm just using the class to differentiate. If you look at the URLs it uses for the slides, you can hot link to any of your div IDs. And this is probably not going to work. I'm going to try it. Okay. Yeah, not working. I thought that was supposed to work. You're supposed to be able to, I thought you were supposed to be able to step through, if you don't define a div ID, then it should have automatically numbered the next transition. So basically what the JavaScript is trying to do behind the scenes is it's trying to take your X and Y inputs and your scales, and it's trying to automatically build your CSS transforms on the fly as you step through them. So instead of having to in advance make all of your CSS complicated transforms, slides, and do all this stuff, you can do it on the fly with some simple parameters because the JavaScript is handling the adjustments for your plane of view, which is going to be like 0. Point 0 is always what the browser is looking at. So that's the magic that the JavaScript behind the scenes is doing, which I'll show you. So here's the rotates, data rotate, data scale. Here's the z-axis I'm starting to pull in, so this is 3D jumping in. So what I like about making presentations in this, now that I've got, is I get pretty good at making divs and knowing what parameters I can put in. HTML, if you've done some HTML, it's not that hard to type out real fast if you know it. And I am not a very visual person, so when I'm in PowerPoint, I feel really lost, and it takes me forever. I'm like moving little graphics here, and things aren't lining up, and I'm making like a text box, and I suck at PowerPoint. I really do. And I felt I was a lot faster making presentations of this. It didn't really take me much time at all to bang out things very quickly, and I kind of understand it a little better. And I like that it's platform agnostic. I can just send the HTML file to someone, and anybody can open it on any as long as they've got a modern browser. They've got Chrome, they've got Firefox, they've got Safari, some iPad support. IE10 actually partially works with this, but it's missing a couple of data types. So it doesn't. There's some hacks and workarounds and stuff that they're trying to work on for IE10. So let's look at. So this part, like where's the scale, rotate, transition one?
Is it mainly just like the transitions and things that don't work in IE? I mean, a lot of these other things should work, right? The framing and the whatnot should.
Oh yeah, most of the theming works in IE, but it's the transform, the transitions.
Yeah, that's I mean the transitions
and that's what doesn't, because they don't have a transform parameter for IE until you get into like IE10, and IE10 even doesn't have for the JavaScript piece, they have data object but not class object or something. I don't do a lot of JavaScript, so I'm probably messing that up. But they're missing a key variable in the JavaScript stuff, so they've taken something called polyfill and they're trying to backfill it. I don't know. I was just reading the blurb on that.
Kind of like Mondo, huh?
But yeah, IE10's not quite there, but IE9 and below is definitely not there at all. So let's pull up the CSS. So HTML is pretty basic. You're making divs, you're making a body, kind of throwing in what you want, naming a class, and then you're making your CSS and you're editing on the class. Not DI. Oh, this blob in the beginning is just a reset, CSS reset, so it's kind of setting a baseline of what you want everything to look like before the browser comes in, even if you're not using all these types. Kind of wipes out any settings they might have had. There's some argument about whether that's needed or not. So here's the basic formatting. This is all pretty basic, just like setting up my basic website that I want. My background, my fonts, and then you start to have some fun stuff pretty soon here. So the failback message right here. So I'm setting the failback message that's your browser is not supported. So what I'm doing right here with this impress supported block is the JavaScript is tagging, is creating CSS. I detected that the browser is not supported. So it's saying in impress supported, in your failback message, if you're in impress supported, don't display the failback message. That's what the display none is doing. So if I'm supported, don't show it. It's always there. Here's the step. So these are the transitions between the slides. Impress enabled step. So you'll notice they do some playing with opacity. So when you're enabled, the step is slightly opaque.
When the time specified too.
Yeah. So you've got your fade in transition time here. When it's active, it means you're on the slide. Then you've got your formatting for the slides in general. This is the hint. You saw that up for a minute where it said use the arrow keys to do whatever. That's not there, but it waits a second to come in. Here's more of the hint. When the hint's enabled, what you're doing. So there's this concept of everything is future. Every slide you create, the JavaScript is flagging as .future until you're on the slide, and then you're .active. And that's how it's handling the flip. So as you transition into the slide, .active, then you fire up these things. So here's my span. So I've got my suck list, and I've got my changes per span. that I was making. My footnote changes. These are the scaling delays. So ing is rotating, scaling, positioning, the 3 words. So you've got ing, and then you've got your 0.5 second transitions for that. Then the 0.5, the translation, present, present, present. Am I making sense right now?
No.
So you've got, when you're in the present, you're scaling the window with the delays. Whoops. I didn't mean to bump that, sorry. There's the base 64 encoded image I said that they embedded, but you don't have to do it that way. Like I've got the include from my logo up here with the reference to it. I'm the pointy-headed boss's image. The base 64 encoding it is actually kind of nice because you can give them one file, so you don't have to give them your blow out web directories. You can kind of just say, here's my fat HTML file where I've merged all the CSS and everything all in one big file.
What encodes it like that?
Oh, you can run base 64 from the Linux command line. Base 64 space file name, and it'll dump out the variables, the values in them. Yeah, I mean, there's websites you can upload an image to and it spits it out. There's all kinds of ways to get to it. There's functions inside every programming language, basically, to spit it out as well.
Got that way.
So, so these are all nice, and you see you're doing them by hand. You're saying translate at 40 pixels for this, for each of those sub little elements. But the major div, like I said, those translations, you don't have to write all this by hand. That's what's nice about the rotate scale parameters on the div lines, is that instead of having, normally you would have to write the CSS and you'd have to say, translate, this much when you're this, and translate this when you're this. It kind of automates a lot of that. So, this is a workaround at the bottom for Chrome, basically, because Chrome was having problems losing the focus so that you wouldn't be able to click. Like, you'd start doing transitions, and then at some point Chrome would freak out, and the clicks would stop registering or moving between slides.
Right.
So, anyways, so what I've done, I've used it a few times, and like I said, I'm not too big on theming, so I've done some presentations, the work, using it, walking through different stuff. You can have a lot of fun, like pulling in some tables. I actually thought this one was fun because these should all be rendering, but because I think it just freaks out a little bit when you're overlapping windows, so some of the stuff goes away, so you get to do nice little flippies with a fade out.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
There goes my browser stuttering. Sometimes you'll notice sometimes it gets a little heavy, I think, on the web browser's part.
Yeah.
So some of the transitions might do that.
Yeah.
Plus this laptop's pretty old and not too good. But yeah, I used it for my Juju talk. Like I said, I'm not very graphical, so I usually don't change I like the gray color scheme that they used anyway, so I don't play with that too much. What I was keyed into by Rick was this, Impressionist. So a lot of people that liked impress.js wanted what you see is what you get editor to create your presentations. And this is pretty alpha, it's got some problems, but it actually is kind of nice. So this is you can check out the source for this and run your own, but this is hosted on this guy's site here, and I think because the way this is working yesterday, this might work pretty well. So let's see what it does. So you can, start making your presentation like it was, I guess, PowerPoint. And you can do in here and make your skews. And let's add a slide. And let's pull in a picture. Actually, so you can start doing that kind of stuff, and then you can do this orchestration view where you can move the slides around, or you can actually sync them, or scale them up. How do I see that I did this? There it is. Okay. Rotate them. And we can do a preview. I think I'm missing something. It's rendering them strange there on the side. Alright. So I can save it. And you can actually
That's light.
Oh, I know. I just opened it. I didn't see it. Okay. I see what I did. I thought there was a preview button.
Switch view.
Hang on, I'm gonna blow this up because I think I'm missing a. Yeah, I'm missing. It's.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like not rendered. So okay. So you next to that, what you can't see is a download. And like I said, this is alpha, so there's some page issues here when I'm shrinking my browser window. It's not really showing me some stuff. So I can download it and it'll give me a zip, which is what it's trying to do now, of its rendered version of impress.js, output.
It's that big. There's just a number. That was a number that's bigger.
So this is all minified and stuff, so it's not gonna be that readable.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice, and I like that someone's doing that, and that it's open source, and you don't have to go to Reddit or.
Do you have the option of not saying it magnified?
I don't know, not right now. You don't, not from this tool.
Okay.
You can run a preview from here, and I'm sure that some entrepreneuring person. So yeah, so you'll see that that's test text, and then I can jump to my transition thing there. I'm sure some entrepreneuring person might make a hosted app out of this thing, which you give some more options, and host the presentations you create as this kind of develops. So this is pretty cool, though. I didn't know about this until a couple days ago. It's mentioned on the site. So where is it? So here's the GitHub for Impressionist, which was the tool we were just looking at. And where's GitHub for Impress? Click on the source. Yeah, so he actually mentions it somewhere in this thing about some people liking Impress enough to start making some additional tools, which I think he was referencing this impressionist thing. Yeah, right here. Fortunately, some guys in GitHub, they got quite excited with building the tools, so let's hope they manage to do it. There's some good notes in here about using the APIs and the JavaScript pieces of it. I'll pull up the JavaScript too, actually, so you can see what that's doing. That's pretty. Should test that. So here's the JavaScript. It's not a short program. It's got a lot to it. But he's got the detection in here for the supported pieces, the fallback message detection. Here's his translation builds he's doing. So you can see some of the logic for translating the coordinates or spitting that out. The scaling function, the perspective function, computing your window, like your window. So that's another cool thing, is I can go to this with almost up to a certain point. I can visit the presentation at different resolutions, and it automatically scales. So it's relative. So the presentation appears the same size always too, which is cool. So some of there's the minimum, I think. You have to be 124 by 768, I think, is the minimum res for this to work nicely. Which is why that had some problems on mobile devices, because of the screen resolution and how you have to scale it for this. So like I said, there's other tools that are like this one that some people might have seen. Reveal.js is a new one I found that I've got to play with a little bit. It's a bit more less 3D flippy, which might be annoying to some people. It's kind of more basic. There's a couple of base transition types. It doesn't do all the 3D stuff, but it works in Safari, mobile Safari. They're touting. The cool thing about this, and I want to play with this one more, is that it has Markdown support, which is something I'm addicted to, and I'm really missing out of impress.js. Which maybe someone or myself, somebody will add it to it at some point. But the way they've done Markdown support is they've done this little. You add a section in your code block that says Markdown, and then anything you put in there is your Markdown formatting. So you still have to make your divs, and you still have to do it that way, and then you make your Markdown section, and you start writing your Markdown formatting stuff.
So that's a little bit like a wiki.
Yeah, Markdown's a simplified syntax. So like instead of writing, greater than a space href equals quote, URL quote less than real URL, all that stuff, you write, bracket, what I want the link to say, bracket, parenthesis, what the link is, parenthesis. Yeah. Or for like a header one, I do, pound, text, pound, and that's a header. Right. So it's just a syntax for quickly marking stuff up. But yeah, there's they have different transition styles. So they've got like linear transition style. This one seems to run faster because it's not doing as much view calculation as the other one is doing. Concave. This is still linear. Where's concave? Exports. Yeah. So this looks pretty good. The other one that I've seen people use is deck.js. I don't think I have that pulled up. So deck.js is even more basic. It's pretty much just linear transition slides. They've got some nice code blocks and stuff I like though. I've seen a lot of people use these at conferences as well though. So it's a much simpler version, but like I said, there's a bunch of these. But I like this whole concept. I like this whole get away from the Office suites, do it in the web browser. You've already got a web browser that handles page formatting and transitions and stuff. And as long as there's some nice tools to work with this, it seems like a superior approach than using a big bloated Office suite. Even I think impress.js is a little jab at Impress from the Open Office people. I'm not, if he says something in their name, it's not, but it's a little quippy thing, so I think it might be.
Like it's not wink wink.
Yeah. But I think that I like this idea a lot. Like I've been looking at even submitting work documentation, looking at this Strapdown.js, which is a Markdown compatible HTML formatter for docs. I just think, why are we using Office suites that are meant really for print formatting to send people documents that are meant for online viewing and printing? So we've got better, elegant ways to do that. Anything else anybody wants? Yeah, I went through it pretty fast. I feel like.
So the pages you have, I saw where you have the data X and data Y. If you want to insert a new page in the middle, do you have to renumber? Do you have to adjust those numbers yourself?
You don't number them. You name them off your divs. Yeah, and you can. What did I do?
Even when you unplug it, it's still got an image.
Hang on, let me check. This might be my NVIDIA driver freaking out.
Well, but that's a projector still.
Yeah, unplug the cable and the video is still there.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's the projector.
Yeah, the projector's crap.
Is there
Reboot it.
is there a reset on that thing?
As soon as you unplug it, that should go away.
Yeah.
Alright. Yeah, so the slides, that's what I was trying to do with the number thing at the end. When you add the divs, the slides get a number. They get assigned a value of transition. So it's this slide with this slide and this slide, and it's in the order of your code. So to move a slide up in order, you just repaste the div. But you can cheat and you can do step. You can say step space, instead of step space slide, you can say step space 10 or step space div ID, which is the preferred way. So if you want to jump straight from my div ID, you know, sucks less, right into, you know, I don't know, goodbye or something.
So the data X or data Y, that just, what is that?
Data X and Y are just your transitions of where I'm at my point, how much I want to slide from the last slide in the numberings. Okay. So if I jump a slide, it's going to go through all of the transitions to that point. It's not going to just like go right there and then not know where X and Y are anymore. So it always walks through immediately.
Yeah. So just a projector.
I just changed the input from 1 to 2, then back to 1. And
Yeah.
That was one best. Well, that was faster than usual.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So there's some control you have over the order of the slides, and you can have hot links to jump between the slides. So you can have a slide link to another slide, and it'll go through the whole transition sequence to get there. I don't know. And I
So
found
like a table of contents kind of thing you could have, and so when you get to the link on it, it would jump to page 13 or whatever.
Yeah, let me see if I can force it to do it because I don't have it here. Where am I? I think I left the presentation. Yeah, I must have. Yeah, I did. I went here. My resolutions are crazy. Alright, let me try some links. Okay, so if I try to cheat, I'm on high mode. I try to go back to high mode. See, it flows through the sequence. But like I said, there's functions in the JavaScript you can call it, say like step, go to, and you can change the active state. So you could hit a slide and after a time duration tell it inactive, so it would go opaque suddenly. I've seen some transitions where they go to like a splash page and then it fades out if the presentation begins with them just sitting there. So far, the results I've had have been really good. So when you show presentations like this to people, they tend to be like, whoa, right away. And then they secondly ask you, how'd you make that instead of whatever you're telling them about?
Embedding video like YouTube, how does it work okay?
I haven't done it. I haven't done that, but I think it would be fine with just the div in the content. If it was YouTube, I think it would just be the embedded player. It would probably be okay. I don't know how it would handle if you move off a slide. I think it would probably keep playing because it's all part of the same view.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see that though. I wonder if you could do something to make that stop. What? Sure.
I was wondering, you know, with JavaScript being interpreted, I'm surprised at the speed. Is there some optimization that's done to get the speed out of it?
JavaScript has gotten a little faster. The JavaScript engines have gotten much better over the years.
It's really native CSS3 transitions too, though, right?
Yeah, it's using
And in the browsers, those can be hardware accelerated 3D graphical animations.
All the JavaScript is doing is passing the CSS to the browser. It's not actually rendering. So it's the browser is relying on its CSS accelerations, like you were saying, and most of those are GL lately. They're GPU offloaded. But yeah, even then though, JavaScript itself has been improved drastically, pretty much lately. But like you said, I mean, like I was saying, it's not on this machine. There's still moments where it kind of feels a bit.
Are you just hitting like right arrow keys?
Yeah, I'm going right.
Yeah.
4 times.
And so what's the speed of your machine there?
This is an Intel Centrino 2, which I think was the first generation of Core 2 Duo-based Centrinos. So
Yeah.
it's an older laptop.
Yeah, but the slides move right along. They don't hesitate or anything. I mean, that's fine.
How much RAM do you have?
I have 3 gig.
3 gig?
Yeah. Because I usually
That
run VM
helps.
or something.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Do you know how long the project's been around?
I think less than a year.
Wow.
They basically, they wanted open source Prezi. Prezi's a company you can get it from, and they were like, well, but
Yeah.
then you guys own my stuff, so.
Very, very cool.
So we don't have a Raspberry Pi to see?
Well, we don't have,
Sounds like that.
we don't have the guy.
Really want to see it.
But we do
Mine's
have-
on its way. I don't have it yet.
Yeah, I'm curious how well it runs XBMC.
Somebody on the Washington log mailing list was talking about that. Let you know if they see any more chatter about it.
Great, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.